Hello, it's time to grade Amazing Spider-Man number 39. This looks like a mid-grade copy, and not too bad, pretty nice. So I'm going to be using my grading system that I came up with that accumulates points for different areas of the book and then gives a rating to each area of that book. And I have an Excel spreadsheet that I've set up that will calculate those points and give you a ballpark grade on a comic book. If you want to check that out, I'll put a link in the description and above as well. So basically what we do is we start at the top and we work our way down through every area of the book. So we'll start with a bindery, and on an older book like this, unless there's some obvious bindery tears or some off-centering, which I don't see anything like that, I will just leave that blank. And the next thing we'll look at is the corners. So the top corner here, there's a little crease. It's been folded over at some point. There's some slight blunting there, and it's basically the same story here on the bottom. And the bottom spine has blunted, not significantly, but enough to that it's noticeable. And the same thing on the top here. And I'm guessing the same thing will be on the back. Let's just glance real quick. That back corner is pretty sharp right there, you can see. Let's check this one out. Yeah, that one's slightly dinged. So the back is generally usually better on comics anyway, so we already know that. But based on this, I would say these corners are definitely... See, we have negligible, tiny, minor, moderate, extensive, or major. It's definitely not minor. It's not major. It's somewhere between moderate and extensive, I would say. I would say it's moderate, but maybe just a little bit more than just normal moderate. Maybe we go up just a tiny little bit on top of that. It's somewhere just north of moderate. So what you can do is I can just tick these extra couple boxes here and add a little bit to moderate just to get us over what would be a standard moderate rating. We always like to err on the side of caution when grading a book. I'd rather overgrade it and say it's a lower grade and then have it come back as a higher grade when graded by CGC or whoever, and be surprised than the other direction, right? So let's look at the edges. That's the next thing we look at. That bottom edge is fairly nice there. I don't really feel anything. And this edge over here, there's a little pitting here and there. Quality of these Marvel covers. There's a little thumb bend right there. So there's a tiny tear, tiny tear. So I'd say we're already to moderate just based on that one. And you can see a tear here and some wear, some fairly light wear, but there's wear up here. And we'll just flip the book over and look at the back edges here. Some little pitting right there. This one's actually fairly nice, just some little dings there. And same thing, it's just folded over, there's a tiny tear here. So I'm going to say we're probably moderate on this edge. I don't think it's enough to call it extensive, but it's definitely there and it's on the moderate side. Maybe similar to the corners, it's just a little bit higher than moderate, more on toward the extensive side, but not quite enough to be called extensive. You would usually see like 1/4 inch tears or better along the edge. A lot more wear than this if you're going to get to the extensive category. So the next thing we have is spine. We'll just turn it to the side here. We have some fairly nice size spine ticks, but nothing major here. This isn't too bad at all, actually. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. About 10 or 12 moderate spine ticks there, but they're not major. And if we just turn the book on its side, it's kind of hard to see. There actually isn't too bent up right here. There's not a lot of bends, so mainly, it looks like these ticks happened probably early in the book's life, and then it kind of set flat and was kept by a collector for years, so it kind of has flattened that out a little bit over time probably. But I would say that's definitely not minor, definitely not major. I would say, because it's fairly nice along here, it's not like hugely extensive, but I would say it's, once again, we're kind of moderate, but maybe a little bit higher on the moderate side, more toward extensive, but I wouldn't quite give that an extensive rating. I mean, it is into his scalp or his hair right there, which kind of is a bummer, but it's not too bad. So I would say I think we're pretty solid with that moderate to on the extensive side rating. Now let's just look at the staples. And you can kind of see some discoloration on that staple there, and maybe a little bit there as well. They're not firm in the book. It looks like it could be sort of pulling through. So what we'll do is we'll open it up to the middle of the book, which is usually around page 13 or so on this book, I believe. And we'll see if we can see. So we're at 10, so we're almost there. One more page, I believe. There we go, page 13 and 14. Okay, so they're firmly in the book, and it's the original staples, and they actually look a lot better on the inside here. So, you know, it is kind of pulling in a little bit to the book. It's not perfectly seated on the outside there, so it's definitely on the moderate side, I would say. So we're gonna go moderate on the staples. And now the cover. And that's just basically the overall presentation of the cover and any defects that we can see. Now there's some color breaking right there and right here. And there's some overall, there's some bends, you know, there's some creasing. Some of that can be cleaned up with a press, some can't. So based on what I'm seeing, there's a little possible tear right there. And this is bent here. Some color break. There's some color breaking up here. Some of that's on the edge, some of it's on the cover, I would call it. And just look at the back. There's some tanning. So I think we're beyond moderate. That's the thing about this book, is I just think overall we're just between extensive and moderate, kind of as an overall theme on this book. I don't think the cover is enough to be extensive, but I don't think it's moderate either. So I'm just going to go kind of similar to what we did on the spine. And just do somewhere between moderate and extensive. So pages look like they're off-white. White to off-white, maybe. Let's just make sure there's no coupons or anything missing. I'm going to turn it over. It's easier to see it from the back. Just carefully turn it over here. Looking good so far. Yep, nothing going on here. See, I've already flipped through to the middle of the book, so we're good on that side. So I think we're pretty safe to say the pages are not bad. They're just slightly off-white to white. I don't see any rips, tears, bends, really, except just the normal stuff that you would see based on the cover. So I think we can safely go somewhere between tiny and minor. So I might just go tiny, but negligible as well. And not quite, I wouldn't even say minor on the inside pages. They look actually really good. So yeah, so overall, we're somewhere between moderate and extensive on this book. But it's a very presentable book. There is some slight fading. It spent a little bit of time probably in the light. And so it doesn't have like the bright colors anymore and the superb gloss, although there is a slight little bit of gloss on it. But certainly a well presentable book. Looks nice. So if I was to give this a rating, so what we'll do is we'll go on the computer and we'll enter these values and we'll come up with a rating. But what I like to do is we do kind of my own guess of what I think this book would come back as if we were to submit it to a grading company. Based on what I'm looking at, it looks too good to be a 4. There's no way it's going to get 6.5 or 7. So we're somewhere between that 4.5 and 6 range. I would think as it sits right now, we're probably a 5.0 to a 5.5. I would probably just say 5.0, and probably 6 would be the cap after press. 6 might be pushing it though, but there's no major flaws on this book. So I think 6.0 could be a pretty good spot for us. So 5.0 with a possible 6.0 after clean and press is what I'm going to go with on this book. I wouldn't be surprised if it got a 4.5. I wouldn't be surprised, but I would be surprised if it got a 6.5 at any point. I just don't think it's a 6.5 book. So yeah, so let's get on the computer now. We'll enter these values and we'll see what we come up with. So we've got our Excel sheet here. We're going to just use our clickable boxes and just enter in the values that we had come up with while we were actually looking at the comic. So for bindery, we didn't have anything. For corners, we had somewhere between moderate and extensive, so we did this. For edges, we had the same thing. For spine, we had moderate, but maybe a little bit heavier. So we went these two clicked. Then we have for the staples, moderate. For the cover, more than moderate, somewhere between moderate and extensive. And then for the pages, we just had a little bit more than tiny. And what we came up with is 5.0. And that's exactly what we expected to see based on my own just knee-jerk reaction to looking at the comic. So we're spot on exactly what we thought, so we're going to roll with that. We think this is going to be a 5.0. Now, was there any room for improvement? Well, let's see. Corners, no. Edges, maybe a little, but not. Spine, I think we can clean up slightly. Staples, no, there's nothing we can do there. Cover, I think there was some room for improvement on the cover. So let's just say we got it down to moderate, maybe somewhere between minor and moderate. Well, we're right about where we thought we could get to, about 6.0, something like that. So we're right on the cusp of 5.5 to 6.0. So I think after press, we certainly have a good chance of getting this book to 6.0. So the last thing we would need to look at is look at our max defects chart down here to your right side of your screen, and just make sure we're not, hitting up against any maximums or anything like that. Like, for example, with a 1-inch tear, we wouldn't be able to get better than a 7.0 rating or whatever. So I don't think there was anything like that on this book. This book was pretty straightforward and nothing extreme on the book. So I don't think it really applies. There were no extreme creases. There was some creasing, but I don't think we're going to have to worry about that, because 6.0 you can have a full cover crease. Like right down the middle of the spine, you could have a full cover color breaking crease and still get a 6.0. Anything about stains and moisture? No, I think we're well within that with 4/4 sizing. Tears, we could have up to 1 inch. I don't think the accumulated tears are going to reach that. We don't have any real pieces missing. Foxing is not heavy, although we would be allowed to have heavy foxing. And the staples, a minor discoloration. I don't think we have to worry about getting worse than that. And the paper color is not tan or slightly brittle. I believe we said off-white on the pages here. So I'm going to stick with that 5.0 as it sits. Maybe after clean and press we could potentially reach 6.5, and not surprised if we're like a 5.5. So that's it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.